Okay. So I'd like to play a little bit around with something that we don't always think about as far as balance goes, which is balancing the upper body. And so, um, what I would like you to find as far as props for today, and so I should have said this before we started recording, but I think I say that next time too, but I have a yoga block and it could be a block, but what I would recommend is it's something that doesn't weigh too much. So a book is fine. And it's we're not going to use it as much as we usually do with like regular what should I say, like usual uses of the block. So really all I'm asking for is for you to have an object that you can place in the palm of your hand. And we're going to play around with a sense of balance. But again, your object shouldn't be more than like 2 to 4 ounces. So it should be pretty lightweight. In fact, if I had a foam block, I would do that. So if you have a foam block, that's probably a better option. But yeah, something that you can place in the palm of your hand and that you get a sense that you are having to balance it a little bit. It could be a tray, right? Because that's what I kind of think of when I work with the block this way, that I'm like almost like a serving tray, right? I'm just holding it on there trying to balance it so it doesn't fall off. And so we'll set this aside once you have your object so that we can center. But then that will be our first work. So for centering, just take a moment. If you want, you can close your eyes, be aware of your breath. Busy times of year, such as this, we can sometimes lose connection to our own sense of self because we have all the things we need to get done. And so I would just like to invite here to stay focused on the breath. If you find that your mind still wanders lots of different directions, that's okay. I think that our minds are brilliant and it's very normal and also fascinating that we can be in multiple places in our mind. But trying to bring it back to the breath, a simple tool you can do is when you're breathing, you almost said a mantra. You say to yourself, I am breathing in when you're inhaling, and I am breathing out as you're exhaling. And like I said, this can be used as a mantra or a repetition. You just continue to say to yourself, I'm breathing in as you inhale. I'm breathing out as I exhale. Our minds are designed to calculate and outweigh all options. So no worries if your brain does not want to spend a lot of time on your breath because it knows that you will breathe automatically without it focused there. And so, just one other way that you can bring presence into this moment is possibly other senses if you're finding it really hard to stay tuned into that breath flow. And it can be to almost intensify your sense of another one of your senses. Maybe you have some nice scented fragrances or some yummy food that might still be lingering in the air. You could think of the different smells that you notice, or you could have the eyes closed and just really tune into the sounds around you. Sounds that you might be hearing are my voice, but then there's probably other sounds around in your house that you hear if someone else is in the house. Of course, hopefully you know them, but it could be sounds that they're making, even if they're trying to be quiet for the practice. But they'll have their own sounds that you can pay attention to. You might have animals or other things going on right outside your window if you're nearby one. So just taking in a way to be in this moment. And again, we'll probably fluctuate in and out of this moment. We're going to stay here for one more breath. And then when you are ready to start to shift towards our movement practice, you might start to open up your eyes, maybe even reposition if your body got a little tight or created any tension. And then, like I said, we're going to do some work with a placed object on the hand. So I have a yoga block, but it could be a book. It could be probably something firm. It could be your phone, honestly. You want something that you can hold in the palm of your hand like you're about ready to serve it to someone. And it should be relatively lightweight. So a pill case, I don't know. There's lots of things. You could be really adventurous and hold a glass of water on your hand, but I don't want you to have to clean up any mess. So, so once you've got that object, right, you're going to take a moment to just kind of get familiar with its weight in your hand. What I hope that you can find is a way to place the object on your hand. Now, I have pretty good wrist flexion, right? That's when I bend my wrist. My palm is almost at 90 degrees. If your flexion is a little different, right? You could be on an angle. Just know that sometimes you have to slide or move the prop a little bit to stay balanced. But you'll find that where that weight counterbalances, there's like mathematics and physics involved, but hopefully you can find where you can hold the object. Now, if what you do is grip it so it doesn't fall, that's not what I'm asking for. You should be in a set up a situation that if you were to tip a certain way, it will fall, right? So, and hopefully it's light enough again that if it hits your toes, it's not going to hurt too much. So, so yeah, so hopefully you've gotten a chance to just kind of feel the weight into your palm. Now we're going to move it around a little bit, but also I want you to think about the relationship to your abdominals. Usually, even just sitting upright, we have some type of tone or engagement to our core. If you were leaning back into your chair, maybe you come up here and then you'll might start to feel those muscles activate. And from there, you're going to start to bring the block further away from your body and just see that little tug or adjustment, right? So you could reach the arm out to the side. And, you know, the abdominals are what keep the hips still planted on the floor, even though we have a weighted object. You could bring that object in front of you. I don't want you to fatigue your shoulders in any way, but if it's comfortable, go ahead and reach that object up overhead. And again, this is where figuring out balance and rotation with your body can be helpful. So you might have to rotate through the wrists to get there. You might have to bend or move the elbows in different ways to get the block up. It doesn't have to be directly overhead, especially if it's a heavier object. Just notice what happens when you move it around. So this is what I'm talking about with balance and coordination for the upper body. We talk about it a lot for the lower body, but I'm just inviting in a exploration of exploring this with with the upper body. So another like fancy trick you can do is how you would bring this around and behind your back, right? So you can explore that and still try to balance it, right? So now I've got it back behind me. Oh, I might tip it, but yeah. And I just invite that, you know, when we talk about yoga practices, it is just that it's a practice. And I have several hours of practicing this to bring this type of practice into your body. So while I'm not fumbling and letting the block fall, trust me, this is hours and hours of practicing this work. So and you can challenge yourself with like, oh, what happens when it does kind of fall? Now, this can also, let's take a break for a moment. You can set the block on your lap. You can kind of shake out that wrist if you need to, because holding the hand this way does kind of put the wrist in a certain way. So I just want to also acknowledge that you want to take care of your wrists as we do this. Let's go ahead and do that same practice on the other side. So again, I like to think about first my core connection, then finding my balance point of the object on my palm, and then I'll start to move it around. So you can bring it far away from you. And again, maybe you feel those muscles kind of pull back to center so you stay seated on the chair. You could bring the block up high. You can bring it in front of you. Like I said, you can practice like yoga tricks. How do you get that block behind you and keep it on your palm? You can try all different ways to move it around, how it feels to move your wrist while still holding it. And this is the practice. This is the play that we're doing today. So see what you discover. Do you feel the core connection? You kind of lose it when you start to move the object around. You have a pattern in which you kind of go back to or forward to. There's all these different angles that you can reach out to, including in front and across, right? So all sorts of ways to play. All right, good work, everyone. Let's go ahead and take a pause with this here. Again, that does do a lot for the shoulders and the wrists. So you can shake out the wrists. If your wrist feels a little tense, you can roll those shoulders for a moment. And then we will come back to this in a little bit, but for now you can set your block or whatever prop you're doing off to the side. Like I said, it could be a phone, it could be anything that you can place or balance on your hand. That's how we're going to use it throughout this practice. So now let's go ahead and do one more little stretch release for those shoulders after that work. So you can reach both arms out in front of you, palms down, and then as if you were going to row a boat, right? You can elbows wide, squeeze the shoulder blades back, and then bring it forward. And you'll do that a couple times. You could even create or feel that you've got almost a weight or a resistance to it by engaging the muscles as you do this. And then the next time you're forward, go ahead and relax those arms, and let's completely let them relax by coming into a forward fold. So now your arms can dangle, your upper body can hopefully rest if you're building any back tension from doing that. Like I said, it's amazing how sometimes surprising thinking about the block sometimes takes away from noticing all of the muscles that are used to stabilize through your center. Let's go ahead and roll back up to a tall spine. And then we're going to come into cow and cat pose. So cow and cat pose is rolling up and down the back and articulating through the spine. So you'll want to be forward from the back of the chair. You can place your hands into your thighs, leaning slightly forward. I find just shoulders slightly in front of the hips is useful, but you could also be tall in the spine. And then you begin to lift the heart, right? Cow pose, and then curl and round for cat. Inhale for cow pose. Exhale for cat. You can keep moving up and down at your own pace. Now, the other ways that you can move through the spine is you might kind of round or pull to one side more than the other. You can keep this moving around, sometimes even circling through the hips or moving the shoulders around can be a nice way to just articulate and get into all these different pockets of tension and tightness in the spine. You can do this very slow and intentional. Maybe again, you find a different pace that feels right for you. And including if you get to one spot, it just feels good to hold there for a moment. Maybe you hold there for a moment. All right, and then eventually come back to a tall spine, stillness. Now, it's okay if you weren't here last week. Last week, I talked a lot about the benefits of wind relieving posture. We're probably going to do this a lot more often in class just because of how many things it can be good for. The challenge of it is that you have to have some strength to bring the leg in. But for wind relieving pose, you can lean to the back of your chair, and then you're going to go ahead and lift one knee up. If you can interlace the hands over the front of the shin, you can do that. I find bringing the hands underneath the thigh more useful, and you're wanting to hug your knee in towards your belly. You want to feel a gentle compression against your abdomen here. And again, it does take a lot of strength to bring that leg up, so we're not going to hold it very long, but you want to feel just a gentle compression against the abdomen. This also opens up tensions in the low back. So this is why, another reason why I like this. You can lower that leg and then take a breath or two here, right? And then let's go ahead and draw the other knee in and hug in. So again, this is good for if you get that compression against the belly. It's good for things like relaxing your body's nervous system, lowering blood pressure. Like, there's a lot of really good things about wind relieving posture. Okay, let's go ahead and lower that side. But again, I realize how this practice is practiced traditionally. I would say you could do this in the morning, like when you wake up, because it's lying on your back, hugging one knee in, and then you have gravity kind of working with you, where in the chair, we actually have gravity working against us and makes the posture a little bit more physically challenging. So you just did the hard version of this posture. But it's also, again, I find the benefits outweigh, inviting in the challenges. So I hope that you found that beneficial. And then you can do the opposite with the legs. So go ahead and extend those legs to a space that's comfortable for you. Again, you could be leaning into the back of the chair. You might even open up through the arms here. All right, and then let's go ahead and set up for some of our postures that we do. And again, we're going to invite back in our prop. So have your object, it's a block or phone or whatever, held into your hand. Okay, finding its balance point. Let's start with the right hand, and then we're going to go ahead and set up into warrior two from the seat of the chair. So warrior two, you sweep that right leg over to the side, and then you're going to go ahead and extend the arms in opposite direction. Now, you traditionally warrior two, the palms are down, but obviously you have to hold the object here for warrior two. If it just feels nice to replicate that with the other hand, feel free to turn that palm up. And then you can look towards your object, see how that feels for the neck and shoulders. Feel again just what it feels like to have that little extra weight into your palm. If it gets to be too much, just let it go. You can place the object down if you're doing okay with this. Again, feel what just that little extra weight does on your hand. Gives you a little extra more in the core. All right, so let's come into goddess pose from here. So you're going to lower that back hand. You're going to start to reach up and back with the block or your prop. Yep. You might have to rotate the wrist with this to see how it feels to get that object up and overhead. It's a challenge. And like I said, I've practiced this a lot before coming in front of you to film this. So if it falls, please just enjoy the play of it all. Okay. All right, let's come back through, coming into extended side angle. Now, extended side angle, you can do forearm to thigh, but you could also take that bottom block if you like the challenge and reach away from your body. And then we're going to use core strength to return back to warrior two. Warrior two, let's go ahead and bring the arms in, swing the leg back around. On an inhale, we're going to float the arms up to high mountain pose. And then exhale, here's the fun part. I almost think of it like cradling a little baby, but you're going to come to a forward fold, maybe holding the block. Again, if I'm just annoying you with holding an object in your hand, let it go, come to a forward fold. Primarily what I hope that you get out of the forward fold is release from any back tensions. And then from this forward fold, you can go ahead and roll back up. If you still got that block in your right hand, right, we're gonna finish reaching the arms up to the sky and then bringing those hands back to center. So I always call this like a block sandwich, but whatever object you're holding, go ahead and place your other hand on top, flip it, and now you're on the other side. All right, so let's set up warrior two to the left. So you're gonna swing left thigh over to the side. You're gonna lengthen up nice and tall into your spine, and then you're gonna reach arms in opposite direction. Warrior two. Now I will do this kind of movement or motions again. So you're either going to do this a second time seated, or you're going to do the standing variation of this. So your choice. From warrior two, again, pressing feet down into the earth, lengthening up tall through the spine. Let's reach it up and back for goddess warrior. And you might have to do a little bit of wrist rotation. You might notice some of the wobbles that holding onto the block might do. Just do the best that you can. Embrace any of the falls. And then let's go ahead and open back through warrior two to extended side angle. So again, you could do bringing forearm onto that thigh, or you could reach the block away from you on this one. And then let's return back up, warrior two. Warrior two, you can bring the arms in. You can bring yourself back around to the front of the chair, float up into high mountain pose, and then exhale, forward fold. Again, you have that choice of either kind of cradling that block, or if you just want to give your wrist, your body a break, you can set the block down for a moment. Take a breath or two in this forward fold. Okay, from this forward fold, let's go ahead and roll back up. So one more time, let's go ahead and flip or bring the block into the right hand. We're going to do seated crescent together and then some standing work if you are wanting to stand, or you're just going to stay in the chair, and I'll give you the adaptations for that. But crescent warrior in the chair, you're going to swivel or bring that right knee around to the side. Now this time you want both knees facing the same direction. So you might swivel that knee in, you might have to pick up and place that foot in a different space. So this is usually a little bit bigger of a stretch here. And then if you still got that block into your hands, crescent warrior is arms up overhead. So again, feel the imbalance of that. Does that arm kind of pull your abdominals to the side? Press through that back leg to anchor and pivot down. Take one more inhale here. Exhale, go ahead and lower the hands, and we'll swivel back around to the front chair. It might feel good just to do some little wiggles here through the hips, but then we'll go ahead and set up that other side. So when you're ready, left, oh, we got to switch the block too. So flip the block into that left hand, swing the left thigh over to the side. And again, you want the knees facing the same direction. So crescent lunge on the chair. Once you have the legs set where you feel nice and strong, go ahead and float or lift the arms up overhead. Soften the shoulders, lift the heart. And then go ahead and lower the hands back in front. You might swivel back around to the front of the chair. And then if you need anything for your body, right, you might windshield wiper those knees. You might take a seated forward fold. This is where if you are wanting to do some of these postures standing, you're going to go ahead and start to bring yourself up to a standing position. And if you're doing the postures seated, you can stay in the chair. Of course, I don't want anybody to break their screens, but I always invite people that afterwards, if there's they're frustrated by the challenge of having the extra prop today, you can toss it at me, but that would again hit your screen. So don't break your screen. And again, anytime you want to just leave it out, it's okay, right? It's just a way to again think about how you carry or balance your upper body. So we're going to start out with, we're going to come back to warrior two. So seated warrior two, you're swinging your right thigh over to the side and you're opening up the arms front to back. Standing, you're going to go ahead and step those feet about outer legs width distance space apart, or at least wider than the hips. You're going to go ahead and turn your right toes out to the side and bend into that knee. So again, now we've got this extra prop. You can reach the arms front to back. You always have that chair to hold on to if you need to. Warrior two, feel your feet press down into the earth. Feel the strength through your abdominals to lift yourself up tall. And then let's bring this into goddess warrior. So that is reaching that block up and back. Again, that hand could be holding onto the chair if you're standing. If you're seated, we've been here before. Take one more inhale, and then exhale, we're going to come forward and through into extended side angle. And again, you have the option to rest thigh on top of hand, or you can reach the arm away from the body. And that is you're going to feel that into your belly muscles. Legs have to stay strong. Squeeze through your glute muscles, your hips. Right? Take one more breath here in extended side angle, and then let's go ahead and rise back up, warrior two. All right, warrior two, you can, if you're standing, extend the front leg, parallel those feet, and go ahead and step the feet together. And if you are seated, you're swinging both legs around to the front. Inhale, reach the arms up to the sky, high mountain. Exhale, take it to a forward fold. And again, it's okay if you just enjoy the fold and set that object down, or you're going to just hold it in the hand. Whatever you need here. Forward folds are for you. From this forward fold, let's go ahead and roll back up. Maybe float those arms up, high mountain, and then bring hands back down to center. We're going to flip the prop into the left hand. Okay, so seated warrior two, you're going to swing your left thigh over to the side of the chair. Standing warrior two, you're going to step the feet wide, turn the left toes out to the side and bend into that knee. Let's go ahead and expand or reach out through the arms. Warrior two. Feel the legs gain strength, draw in through the belly. Right from here, let's go ahead and reach the block up and over. Let's go ahead and come back through warrior two, and then setting up for extended side angle. Extended side angle. Again, let's rise back up, warrior two. And now we're going to go ahead and extend the leg, parallel those feet, go ahead and step them back together, bring the hands in together. Inhale, reach up overhead. Exhale, forward fold. Again, you can always set that block down for now. Breathe into your back. Bend your knees if you need a little more space, right? This forward fold should feel nice on your body. And if it doesn't, you could come to a more neutral position for yourself. And then when you're ready, let's go ahead and roll back up, mountain pose. All right, so one more thing with the block, and then I promise we can let it go. We're going to do our balance pose, tree pose, with the use of the block, but I'm going to give you 3 options, or actually 4, because I want to give a seated variation. Well, the chair and the seated version are, the first version similar for seated and standing. So the first version is we're going to use the block just like we've been using it in class. or for most of class, right? The leg that you're going to choose for tree, you're going to pick that leg, you're going to have that block into your hand, you're going to express your tree pose and reach the arm up. So seated variation of that again, and again, you can completely ditch the block right now if you're just done with the block, but you're going to bring the leg in, you're going to reach the block up, one or both arms. So that's tree version 1. Tree version 2 are the 2 and 3 are all both standing versions. You're like, tree pose, easy peasy. I need something more challenging, right? If you fall into that category, I guess it does have to be a block now or a book. So this one, you're going to make your floor more challenging. You can take a step onto your block or object and try to balance tree pose there. Again, this is if you're like, tree pose, always easy. I'm bored with tree. So that is version 2. Version 3 is bring stability to your tree. So for that, you'll have, if you have that block or a little riser, you're going to bring to the inside of your foot, and you're going to bring your branch or your external rotated leg onto that block. So again, this is 3 ways you can incorporate balance with your block. All right, so about 5 more breaths with this. So if you're like, well, I tried one, now I want to try a different one, try a different one. The nice one about this last version for standing is if you usually rely a lot on holding onto the chair for this version, by having that block there, there's something that creates a little bit more stability because your ankle of the standing leg can press into the block. And then you have this sort of like platform for the other leg. It just draws everything in like we're supposed to activate through the core to do this posture. Okay, option again, I think that was 2 where I said you can stand on here, that wobbles everything. So you can hold on to the chair if you need to, or hands-free. Okay, so if you did the block in the hand, go ahead and lower those arms, bring both feet back down to the floor. Same thing if you have a foot or anything else that is airbound, go ahead and anchor both feet down. Take a break with that. If you need to shake out that standing leg, shake out that standing leg. This can sometimes come into the hips. I encourage some nice hip circles if you're feeling a lot in your hips. If again, everything for you comes into the back muscles, give yourself a moment to release the back. And so that could be a forward fold, or some variations on forward fold is like bring your hands to the seat of the chair, and then almost like you're taking a seat in a chair behind you that isn't there. You bend the knees, let your belly rest on the thighs. And that's a good way to open up the back. And then when you're ready, go ahead and roll up. Now we've got tree other side. You kind of know what to expect, right? We've got 3 sort of variations that we're playing with. You can same leg, same side with the block if you want to play with balance and tree pose. And again, have your support on the outside if you need. Hold that chair on the other side of the chair on the wrong side for this one. You can pick your standing on a block if you're feeling adventurous, right? If you're just like tree pose, easy peasy. Or tree pose, wanting to feel really grounded with it. All right, looks like everybody's got a version of tree. So that version 3 you can actually do with the chair too. I forgot to mention that. So I'll demonstrate that, and then still work your tree pose, right? So again, if you have that yoga block, your standing leg, your branch leg. And again, you just get that nice stability of using the block to push into with both feet, whether you're seated or standing. Tree pose. All right, 3 more breaths, whatever variation you're working with. And then let's go ahead and bring hands lower. Make sure both feet come to the floor. Once both feet are to the floor, take care of your feet, whether that is shaking out that foot that was standing, whether that is circling through the hips, or whether that is taking a forward fold to release back tension. Also, I always like to at least say once a class, grab a drink of water if you haven't, and you have something nearby and you need to hydrate. For whatever reason, I think colder times, I forget about drinking water a lot easier than in warmer weather. So still good to hydrate, especially when many of us live in heated spaces that dry out our skin insanely much. So take a moment to grab a drink of water if you need to. For those of you that did come to a standing practice, we're going to bring it back to everybody seated in the chair. So when you're ready, you're going to come back to the chair. And as promised, whatever object you've been using, whether it was a yoga block or some other object, you can let that go. So as I mentioned, I do find that there can be great relief in wind relieving pose. It is good for back tension. And some of the things that we did could kind of create some tightness into that back. So as a closing posture, I just want to bring in wind relieving pose one more time. We're not going to hold as much time on it, but you can go ahead and draw one knee in, take a breath or two there. Lower that leg and then shake it out if you need to, and then go ahead and draw the other knee in. And go ahead and release. You can windshield wiper the knees after that. You can circle out the hips if you need to. Go ahead and shake out the wrists like you are air drying your hands. You do hold onto that block for a while. So just let any last tension in those wrists go. And also just holding onto something that has a little weight to it might do something for those shoulders. So rest the hands, roll the shoulders. And then getting into the hips from here, seated pigeon pose. You can lean into the back or stay upright. And sometimes it makes sense to have a prop in front of you. So you can, of course, cross ankle over thigh if that works for you and it does stretch into your hip. If what you notice with doing this shape is more knee or ankle pain, right? Some nice variations are, do you have a footstool or even just a chair, another chair in front of you? You can bring your foot up to that chair and just still get into that hip in a different way. So hopefully you found a variation of pigeon pose that works well for you. If you do this and you're not feeling much stretch into the hip, the relationship to this thigh and the belly will get different stretch sensations. So if you hinge forward, you will hopefully get the right stretch for you. So, and I shouldn't say the right stretch for you that you have to hinge forward. I'm just saying if you're sitting upright and you're not feeling much stretch, then come forward. And then coming out of pigeon pose on this side, you can release that leg down, give it a shake out. Might windshield wiper the knees, you might extend the leg. And then let's go ahead and set up the other side. I always like to acknowledge that sides are different. So sometimes one side you need to do a little different setup. Sometimes that side will feel the same, but most of us usually feel a little differently hip to hip. So even if you set up the posture the same, it might just sensational wise, intensity wise, be different on this hip. Might be your tighter hip, it might be your more open hip. So softening through the breath, relaxing through the bones, the muscles. Okay, and then ready, go ahead and release, figure four, pigeon pose on this side. You can shake out the legs if you'd like to. You could stretch through the legs if you'd like. Again, sometimes this impacts the back, so I always like to offer a nice forward fold. Just take a moment to give your body what you need. And if you're not sure, try something, or try, if that doesn't work, try something else. And then if there's anything else that you need before Shavasana, maybe it's a twist side to side, right? You might choose to do a little spinal rotation, but also know that you could go right into Shavasana. So if you are doing the twist, that is lengthening up through the spine, you can bring your left hand over to your right thigh and look over to the right. On your exhale, unwind, inhale, exhale, twist to the other side. So that is left hand coming over to right thigh and looking over to the left. Then coming back to center. If there's anything else you need before Shavasana, if you haven't found your way there already, take a moment to do that for yourself. You might do something like find a more comfortable chair if your chair is a little less comfortable. I always like to bring just a little cushion or pillow onto my lap for resting. Lean back into the chair is good. And then just taking a moment to close the eyes, unless that sends your attention everywhere else. Know that you can stay at rest and continue on in Shavasana for longer if you need it. Sometimes we just need to be. If you are in a space where you feel ready to do some gentle movements or awaken, you might start with breathing a little deeper or starting to blink and open up the eyes. It might feel good to add more motion, but again, just at your own pace. You might wiggle fingers or move through the toes, but take your time. There really is no rush. It might feel good to add more movements on or stretch out through the limbs or the legs. Might sit tall again if you're resting into the back of your chair. I invite you to take all the time you need, whether it is to continue to rest or maybe um, it is to close out your practice. And so you can take a moment for you. I always like to offer appreciation for my body and say, thank you, body. That's one way I like to close my practice. But if that doesn't resonate with you, maybe it's something you'd like to lead into your day with, just with how strong you are or your willingness to play and explore in life. Right? These are all great things. So whatever serves you. And then closing together, if you're in a space to close in community. Again, if you're still in rest, that is okay. You're a part of this community. But if you are closing together, just making sure that you find one last final seat. I'd like to offer Padma Mudra as our closing mudra. So Anjali Mudra is where you have all the fingers closed and sealed together. Padma Mudra, you open up the second, third, and fourth fingers. So the idea is that you're creating almost like a flower or a lotus blooming. And I think that really represents the intention of the mudra. It is to remain open-hearted, open-minded. And I think that that is actually a really great way to end a yoga class and to go into the rest of your day. It's in this space I want to offer an Om. Know that you can join in with your voice or ears, however you would like. We'll exhale, inhale, and then Om. So whenever you're ready, exhale out all the air in your body. Take a deep breath in, then Om. I honor the place in you where your humanity resides, the place that's filled with love and peace and joy and compassion. When you find those spaces within you, and I am connected to those spaces within me, that's when we unite. Thank you so much for sharing your heart, your energy, and you in this practice today. Namaste. I will go ahead and pause the recording, but I will stay on for those of you that are live with me today.